Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me here tonight for this special midwinter program. My name is Allison from the Well Cultivated Life, and I just really wanted to do something to mark this period, this sort of transition that we're in right now, where we're moving away, or we're now becoming farther away from winter and closer to spring. And this official midpoint is, for me, it's really important. I live in the northern hemisphere. I live pretty far north, and so it's cold and snowy outside, and um that kind of condition can be, it's really kind of oppressive and depressing. And so we're, like, literally this time of year, we're frozen. We're both cold and frozen, but also we can get kind of frozen with moving our life forward and taking action. We're just kind of waiting for the world to be warm enough to go outside and to start reconnecting with the outdoors again. And so, as an herbalist and a seeker of, wisdom for my own life journey, this connection to nature is just so incredibly important for me. And it's my source of calm and grounding. And so just crossing this midpoint line is like, yes, it's a wonderful thing. And so I wanted just to recognize that, that even though it's getting, well, kind of, it's still cold outside, we are actually moving towards spring. And so a lot of cultures have a celebration this time of year. Probably the most well known in our Western culture is the Celtic cross quarter celebration called Imbolc, which is a celebration to the goddess Bridget. And it's a type of fire festival, and a lot of different traditions uh, and rituals come with that, and with other festivals and celebrations this time of year. But most of them are really looking at fertility and just that's the common theme. And so one of the things that we can do at this time of year is to reconnect with, like, well, what is actually happening beneath the snow outside? And we can start to detect these kinds of pending transition, changing from sort of dormancy into growth. And I know in my own um, home here, my chickens, my hens are laying tons of eggs all of a sudden. And so that's always a good sign. And we know that the songbirds are on their way back from their southern reaches, even though they haven't gotten here yet. The willow tree in my yard is starting to get more yellow. It's one of the first trees to leaf out and blossom at uh, where I live. And I also live in a place where there are a lot of maples, and so soon the sap will be running, and we'll be able to taste the delicious sweets and sweet syrup. And so I just wanted to kind of acknowledge these kinds of patterns of nature that um, we too are a part of, and we have this thread of life that's kind of interwoven in with all of the other parts of Earth. And this idea of this thread, it is was inspired to me, and I'm going to share this slide with you, by this poem that I came across recently, by William Stafford, and it's called "The Way It Is." There is a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is harder for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. And I love this first part there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. And that, in a way, it kind of made me think of this thread is sort of our life path or our destiny. Now, sometimes when I would think about, the sort of path of my life, I think of it, or a thread or a lifeline. I would think about a mountain climber and how they would rope themselves together. So if you slipped, then the line would hold you up. You wouldn't go plummeting into some sort of crevasse or something. And I know that a lot of us have these types of practices that are lifelines, like prayer or meditation, exercise, art, music, anything creative. And so those are really important, but I don't think that's really what he's talking about here. It's not really what I um envisioned when I was reading this poem. And so if you what I wanted to do was just give you sort of a sense of a thread. And if you want to, I'm going to read a little piece here, and then I if you want to close your eyes and just try to visualize it, it's very short. And let me just read this to you. So imagine a thread as fine as a spider's web, strong and flexible, stretching out before you, farther than you can see. It moves with the changes in the atmosphere, in the changes in the environment, weaving through and within the matrix of living and non living entities that you encounter. This thread extends before you and behind you towards the places you've been, your ancestry. So if you can imagine just a thread of your path, what does this image or feeling, sometimes people get more of a feeling around it, are you following this strand and allowing it to guide you along your sort of wandering way? So many of us will cling so tightly to what we think we're supposed to be doing, and we'll end up kinking things up, and others will like completely give up and let go and get lost. Still others will become sort of stalled and feel like you're not getting anywhere, or even feel like you're going backwards. But you also could be a person that was holding on loosely to this thread and being conscious of its importance as a gentle guide for your way. So, not to get too deep or philosophical, but it's just something that sort of came up for me. And especially now that this stalled feeling is kind of what I think a lot of people feel now this time of year. And so we can relate this back to what is happening in nature. And I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can do. I mean, nature has its own trajectory, and the plants and animals, they don't get stuck. They're following along on their very own threads, and they're doing what they're going to do along their path. And so we as humans, of course, have become very disconnected. And this is not a surprise. I'm not going to go through the list of reasons why you're disconnected, but so the purpose is just like, how can we get back on to a path by reconnecting with the natural world? So these are not revolutionary new ideas I'm going to share with you, but they are sort of ancient wisdom. And so if that is something you are wanting to do, then here are a couple of ideas for you. And let me make this bigger. Oops. So the first one is to observe, and that just means to find a place that you can be observing on a regular basis. So maybe it's somewhere that you go for your daily walk. Maybe it is a place in your yard, or even looking out a window that you are sitting at regularly. And just be aware of the changes that are happening all the time. I used to work out in the woods for years, and I would return to the same place every year or every month during the growing season. And it always occurred to me that as I would walk into this forest, it seemed static, but it was very dynamic, and there were always things that had changed. Perhaps a tree had fallen, and something had gotten uprooted, and things like that. So nature is always changing, and just by observing, connecting to it, we can see how it's constantly moving. And you could do this by either doing you could do a photographic sort of photo book by taking a picture every time you were there, or you could journal or sketch about what you observed when you were there, and or you could just be there in that spot and make this connection with just this one little place that you is special to you. So the next thing would be is the word savor. And so by savor, I mean by reconnecting to nature through the food that you eat, and making sure that it's nourishing as you're eating, and you're smelling it and it's delicious, and you're um, also just paying attention to how you're cooking it and enjoying what's coming from your plate to your body. It is a huge way that we connect with nature, is through the food that we put into our body. So this is just a second, make sure it's real, make sure it's good, and be more conscious of your eating. Now, the third one is grow. And of course, as a plant lover, to me, that means to um, bring plants into your house. And I've got the last of my winter flowering bulbs here, house plants, cuttings from outside. Or if you're not a plant person that wants to take care of plants, just buy yourself a bouquet of flowers on a regular basis and be bringing these types of nature connections. And then choose some of these, you know, appreciation. The plants are simple, appreciate their simplicity and their complexity, and that they have both, and what amazing, like, sentient types of creatures they are. And so the last one is support. So as an herbalist, the thing I look to support myself is to create and have a daily habit of a nourishing or some other way supporting cup of tea. And this time of year, it's very nice to have a tea um, that's supporting sort of your nervous system and keeping your sort of depression, anxiety, and those sorts of things, helping to support you in that way. So for tonight, I have a cup of tea that is lemon balm, and that lemon balm brings this sort of lemony taste of summer in. And then that's always refreshing for this time of year. It also has some antiviral properties, so that's going to help just with all the viral things that are floating around this time of year. And I also included lavender because I love lavender. Some people are allergic, but that has, it's just calming and soothing. It's going to promote a restful sleep, which we all know we need a good restful sleep. Chamomile is another one. Again, it's a flower, and so it's bringing in sort of these flavors, scents of other seasons that we're kind of missing and craving right now. And it's also soothing to the digestive system, relaxing, and can also be helpful for like allergic reactions to things. And then the last one is holy basil, which is also sometimes called tulsi. And that's just a balancer to the nervous system overall. So that's another wonderful thing to keep in your tea. Now, if you're feeling ill, you could add in some yarrow or mugwort. That's helpful, like for a cold, or rose hips, which have vitamin C, or pine, which is one of my favorites. So those are my suggestions for you to try to reconnect it to your thread, the thread of life that is part of nature. You are part of this whole web that we live within. And so, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I hope this has given you some renewed faith that you're going to make it through the winter. Try a couple of these suggestions for just to renew you, because spring will be here before you. Oh, I forgot the most important one, planting some seeds. Just got my last set of seeds here from one of my favorite seed suppliers today. So thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have the wonderful rest of the night. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.